Is Carla Pennington Cross here?
Indeed, I am.
Great. Ben Wynn is also here. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, let's go to 2A, student clubs.
All right, so at our August board meeting, we had brought the co-curricular and athletic stipend to the board for approval, and there were a few that were missing. And so I had a conversation with building administration, Ms. Young and Mr. Williams, along with Mr. Birmingham, just to have a conversation about the clubs that were listed. And we found out that there were a few that are not planning on running this year, and then it kind of opened up the whole conversation of what clubs are running and how are we paying people and the amount that we're paying them. And so for Mr. Birmingham, Ms. Young, and Mr. Williams and I talked about all the different clubs. This is not including athletics. This is just for co-curricular club, because athletics, we decided, is just its own separate commitment of time that it takes. Then it and how it runs with the different seasons is different than the co-curricular. And so co-curriculars, you meet different times depending on the club. So a club might run year round, but it might only meet once a month. And then another club might meet for 3 months, but it might, what was that? Oh, sorry. And then, so we decided that a better way to do it would be to look at the participants and the number of clubs in the club itself. So for a club that has 10 or more students, the advisor would receive $1,100. And then for a club that receives that has 25 students or more, there would be a lead that would receive $2,000, and then an assistant that would receive $1,500. And then part of the club, every time that it runs, you would have to essentially take attendance, and you have to create a roster with each of the club for state reporting. So it's kind of twofold, because one, we'd be able to see if somebody says, okay, my club, I want to have 20 kids, but they really only have 3 kids attending, then we can kind of look and decide, okay, is this the club that we want to have keep running, even though there's only 3 kids participating? So we wanted to look at that in December, because then we could see how are the clubs, the participation rate. And we want to be cognizant of the fact that people did put time into creating this club. So whether a club would continue after December, somebody would still get a stipend of $500 no matter what. So even if their club doesn't continue after December because they only have 1 or 2 kids and they thought there were going to be 20 or 40 kids, we still want to give them something.
I was just going to add the piece about having the roster is also helpful, because one of the things that Danielle brought up was using that as one of our data points around who's participating, which kids are participating in clubs, and even perhaps which staff members are running clubs. So that would be a really nice like district data piece that I could monitor, just as we're talking about equity, right? And then talking about being able to look at who's participating and if there is some inequity in there, and how we could potentially support families, so that if perchance we don't have the participation we want in a certain group, we could try to see what the barriers are to that and then support that as a district. So it's kind of like another good piece of data for me.
And part of the information gathering was a survey that was sent out to anybody that was interested in leading a club. It was asking the questions of what are you trying to accomplish with the club? How often are you planning on meeting? And the piece with that was we wanted to make sure that it didn't leave out any students that couldn't participate because of transportation. So we just wanted to make sure that wouldn't be a barrier for kids being able to participate. And then how many kids are you expecting to participate? And then how many staff members would need to be a part of it. And we wanted to try to limit it to a lead and 1 assistant rather than having like 6 people to do it. And Mr. Birmingham was getting all of those responses. So I should be able to get those from him in the next week. But he had already put in places the ones that we knew for sure that we had brought to the board that already had an advisor in place for it.
We used that new form. Sarah Kramer-Fretz used it, and it seemed to work pretty well, because that was a new club this year, was the Rainbow Club. So she used that process and it seemed to go pretty well.
And one of the pieces in the conversation when I met with the building administrators and Mr. Birmingham was the clubs are really generated by the kids. The kids come up with the ideas. they bring it to Ms. Young and they say, this is a club that we want to create. This is the plan, these are the advisors, and then they get that approval from there. But it really is just a very student-driven process of what club, like the newest one that's coming in was the dance club that just took off this year. And from what I've heard, it's had some great participation rate.
So would the compensation count for, is that for every club or is this just for the new ones?
This will be for every club. And so I looked to make sure that nobody was going to be less than what we had already agreed upon, and everybody's at where they are or maybe a little bit more.
Okay, and like what happens if you do a dance club like that and you get, 50 student participants? That's going to take more than a leader and an assistant.
So the dance would be considered athletics. It would be a little bit different tier than this one, because athletics is we're going to have it fall under athletics, because dance is considered athletics.
Well, what about cheerleading?
It would be the same as it would be under athletics.
With Sarah Kramer Kretz, did that end up still being, because she had initially more people.
Yep, but that was one of the pieces that when she had one meeting, and I reached out to Mike to find out how many students attended, because she thought it was going to be 40, but how many actually attended.
So to Ben's point, though, I'm assuming if she had 40 people participate, we would say she could have more than one assistant.
Yeah, sorry, I misunderstood what you were saying.
Yeah, I think that's what you're getting at.
So that assistant, okay, yeah, no, and that assistant would get.
Yeah, we really wanted it to be not more than 25 per adult.
Okay.
That was kind of what we were thinking it should be.
Okay. And then we're gonna revisit sports at a later date.
Yep, we wanted to kind of tackle the co-curriculars. The sports are a little bit different, because I know you had mentioned it in the past, like just the amount of time and the commitment with practices, games, and just everything with athletics. I didn't want to rush. I want to do it a little bit more research and just looking at how long our seasons are running, because like for all of our sports, we have like a boys basketball, a girls basketball, but then it also varies, because sometimes we don't have a 7th grade team, we only have an 8th grade team, and then some 7th graders are on there. So I think we need to have a more conversation around that.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. Because yeah, I mean, it's not, it's everywhere that they're underpaying coaches. So, it's, yeah, so that's definitely something we need to look at. But yeah, no, I mean, I don't know. I guess, I've never coached forensics or anything like that. So I don't know. I mean,
What we were trying to do is we wanted.
What if they're doing forensics and they meet every day? Like I remember at Glen Hills, forensics used to run every day. Is that person only going to get $2,000 then?
So that was one of the conversations that we had talked about, because forensics meets every day. Like last year we didn't have it because there weren't enough kids that participated, but they meet every day, but for a much shorter season than, for example, robotics club. So when you look at the amount of time they meet, it's over the course of a year. So that's why we didn't want to base it off how many times people meet, and more about the participation.
Okay.
Yeah, I still have questions about criteria. And I think you would be well served to have very firm set of criteria, because there'll be questions, I think, and eventually there'll be questions of fairness, right? And the best way to have a nice, safe environment to where people understand the rules is to have solid criteria, right? So as I read through what you were talking about, I thought, I identified 3 criteria, right? The number of participants, the number of meetings, right? And the timing of the meetings, over how long a period of time, intensity, right? Versus how long. So, when I was looking at some of the stuff you're thinking about, like, you're going to have to make, I don't know if they're going to be arbitrary or what, you're going to have firm cutoffs, right? Like if you say you're going to have 25 participants, but you only have 24, that going to be where you're just going to have to be firm, I think, to be fair. And then I started thinking, about rolling averages, right? What if you say you're going to have 25 participants, sometimes you have 40 and sometimes you have 20, how are you going to calculate that? Are you
So
going to
that's-
calculate it as a rolling average of the last 4 meetings? There's lots of ways you can come at it, but
I think
you
that's why
should
we
have
wanted to
that.
look at it in December, because then it would have been from the start of the school year through December. We could look at the average through that time period. Because you don't want to base it off, because let's say you have a low attendance rate for one meeting, that shouldn't be the thing that determines it for.
Right.
like,
So I
how
think
it's-
if that's what you're going to do, then I think you should articulate that so
Sure.
that it's clear, because otherwise I think there's the appearance of room for, favoritism, arbitrariness, whatever. So I worry about that.
Sure.
And I think, like if you're going to add assistance for a certain number of students, you should set that criteria. If you have X number over 25, then you get do you know what I mean?
Sure.
So that's what I was thinking about. And if you're going to base it on the number of meetings, you should be articulating what the numbers are you're looking for, right?
Well, it's
'Cause,
based on
in
the number, it's not based on the number of meetings, it's based on the attendance.
Okay, just the number of
But
participants.
I get what you're saying, just articulating more about the expectations and the criteria. I
Yeah,
definitely get what you're saying, and I can see that.
yeah.
So Lindsay, we have a newsletter, is that something that we just map out and put in our next staff newsletter, even if there are people that'll never ever do a club, just so it's really transparent?
Absolutely. Because one of the big things is that we're hoping that having a little bit more clear expectations of a club, we want to have more club created at Parkway. And so we're hoping to drive some interest in some club for some of the elementary level kids. So definitely we can include that in the newsletter and also just post that too. So.
Because I just think about, we've heard stories, right, of people that were like, I was doing Battle of the Books and somebody else was doing Battle of the Books. And then I found out later that it wasn't fair. So
Mhm.
just really, yeah.
Absolutely.
So my only thing is, and again, my experiences with coaching, not necessarily, clubs, but there is disparity too between how many hours someone puts in. So like, one type of coach might put in more hours than a different type of coach, like depending on what it is. Now, in this case, it's for clubs. So like I was saying, the forensics coach might put in more hours than maybe Battle of the Books, or, vice versa. So like, since we're kind of evaluating it, I don't know if this is a stupid idea or not, but like, why not for a year pay them by the hour and have them track their hours, do 20, $25 an hour, and then just see where they're at. You might map out of, hey, this is kind of the ballpark of how many hours you should be working. And then at the end of the year, you can kind of evaluate, and then we can do stipends after that.
That could be pretty challenging if you're asking people to track their prep.
Well, okay, so I mean, right. I did the same thing on my Excel spreadsheet when I came prepared. I said these are the amount of hours I'm working, and I kind of underestimated how much prep work I put in, because like I coach swimming, so I had to write the practices, I had to write the weight room.
Athletics would be easier.
Yeah.
I'm thinking like for a club, it'd be hard to say how much time did you plan for the 10 kids that came with, and that would be tricky.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's going to vary by, like the Battle of the Books person might have to prep by, finding questions that were asked in previous years and things like that. So yeah, it's going to vary. So, but I'll tell you that when I did my Excel spreadsheet, I underestimated how much prep work I did.
I think if we were going to go that route, it's almost, this is kind of a rough comparison, but kind of like how we do summer school, where teachers have to present what their courses that they want to do, they want to teach in summer school, and they have like a plan and just like what the materials cost and like what they're like how much, because we pay for the prep time, like that they're telling us this is how much time it will take.
Right.
So it's almost like if you have a club and you say, I'm going to need this much time to prep it, because that would be, I feel like, the only tangible way that I'd be able to budget for it. Because being able to say, okay, this is your club, this is what you want to do. Can you give me an estimate about how much time you think it would take for you to prepare or do all the things that you need to be able to run this? And then that would allow me to budget. I'm not opposed to it by any means, but I think I just need something tangible to budget with it.
And maybe we get to a space where it's like X amount of hours equals X amount of prep.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? And then that's just kind of a standard. Like I know we're talking about compensatory services for a student with an IEP. And we said for every 45-minute lesson, we're gonna add 15 minutes of prep. And so that was easy to map out and budget. So I mean, we could get to a space like that too. I almost could see Ben forensics, and we'll have to see what it looks like in December, but I could see like battle of the books, forensics. Some of those might actually move over and be more like an athletic,
Yeah,
just because
like,
it's super consistent amounts of time.
and like, someone like Dan, I don't know what his counts as. But like, isn't he meeting all year? Like, 3 days a week or something like that? Like, that's gotta be different than some other clubs too.
He's also working with Nicolay students,
Yeah,
right?
right.
So it's complicated.
So like,
I feel
but
like,
I just like, this is why, like, since we're unsure, or because it's kind of a trial, either, I don't know if, like, yeah, again, like, would it be the worst thing in the world to say, hey, like, this is the ballpark of your hours, let's pay you by the hour and let's see where we're at.
I have a backwards idea. I think if you're going to do that at this point, it would be better to do it the other way. Pay fixed stipends for this year and ask people to track their hours.
But you just don't want to underpay people. Like, I calculated it, and I was earning $12 an hour to coach swimming.
Well, and athletics is separate. We're just talking about.
Well, no, I know, but I'm just saying it is possible to count how many hours it actually takes to like do the job.
Mhm.
But that would, if you're looking at budget now, I mean, this is just me talking off the top of my head. I haven't thought this through because it's a new idea to me, this idea of paying teachers hourly, which seems like a administrative nightmare to add, a little mini nightmare to add. But if it's something you wanted to explore, at this point, it might make sense rather than, I don't know. I just wonder if it's better to stick with the stipends for this year. That's what teachers have been anticipating and talking about and how they've done it. And then ask teachers to track their hours for this year.
Or is it possible that, I mean, okay, I might have missed this, but did you meet with these teachers?
We sent out the survey to get all the information. So I'm getting it back from Birmingham with all the information. And then I can also just include, like what Carl is saying, asking them, can you give me a brief description or a number of hours that you use to prep for your club?
Yeah. So like, and how many teachers is this total?
It was over 20 clubs.
Over 20 clubs. I mean, is it possible just, I mean, okay, so how many people gave you the hours?
So here's my only thing then is that just from our budgeting, like, because I don't know what number of hours, so it's really, I don't want to commit to doing that without knowing, because if somebody says I spend 30 hours like a week at night doing this or something like that, that can be really hard for me.
So is it possible, like, okay, so how many of these people gave you their hours though?
I haven't seen all of the results
okay
yet.
So what if, like, I don't know, because we're not deciding anything tonight.
No.
What if you said it's 20 teachers. I mean,
as far as that's what it was, the last number I had. He was still getting responses, so I don't know where it landed.
So is it possible to either ask them one day and to sit them down and say, hey, I need you to give me the hours you work for this club, and then you calculate it yourself, and then we can kind of have a better idea of, the appropriate, and we can still do stipends, and that way you can prepare and there's no surprises.
I think that's definitely doable.
If they say it's like 100 hours, then you multiply that by 20, 25, whatever we decide, and then go from there.
But I think you have to take the other variables into account too, because if somebody says, I'm putting in 100 hours for this club and 3 people are going to that club.
Yes. And
you know what I'm saying? So there's like a whole bunch of pieces.
Right. And
so
maybe we do a rate where it's like, yeah, okay, if there's less than 10 people in the club and we're running it, it's $25 time, or your chosen number of hours. So it's not actually getting paid by the hour, but you're saying you're getting paid $20 an hour for these many hours that we think you should be working doing this. And then you could say, well, but since you have less than 10, it's actually 25 times 3/5, or, you know, I don't know, just like something like that, where we have some sort of structure where it's less than 10 people. Okay, so you get, you know, 4/5 of the wage or whatever, or something like that.
I like,
I think it would-
I was just gonna say, I like the idea of what Carla's saying. So we've got the stipends right now. Nobody's unhappy with them. Let's track the data, because we might get to a space where we have them track all these hours and we go, oh, wow, this was pretty good what we were paying, like,
Yeah,
versus reinventing the whole system.
but I mean, if you're working 3 days a week for the entire year, you know, for a club, and I don't know if that even exists. Like $2,000 isn't very much, you know, compensation. So like that's all I'm saying is it? I mean, could you
Mhm.
just?
I can get the information.
And
I
some-
think getting the information would be beneficial. And then once we get the information, that gives us some data points that we can look at and see if we notice a trend, or we can come up with a tier system or something. But I think without seeing some of the data from people coming in of how much time are you prepping, like it's
Yeah.
gonna be hard to.
So yeah, I guess I'm saying I would appreciate it if you just talk to those 20 teachers, just said, I really need a number from you right now.
I think that's what they're working on, right?
Yeah.
Getting
Yeah.
that. to me.
Okay. And then,
Go ahead.
well, and then once we have that information, we'll make adjustments to this policy.
Well, we said December, so I mean, that's like 2 months.
Month and a half.
Oh, I thought you said, sorry, I misunderstood. I thought you said we were reevaluating this in December.
Yeah, so we
Yeah.
would collect all this data and then in December we could look at it and see how we want to move forward.
Oh, okay. Okay, never mind. I thought we were doing this now and then evaluating in December. So this is for next year then.
No, we're doing it now, but we have to wait for more data to come in to look at it in December, because some clubs haven't even started yet. Like some of them are starting the beginning of November. So we wanted to give them a few weeks to run to see what the attendance rate is and all of that. So, but while we're getting the information of how many kids are attending and all of those, we also can get the information of how much time is due for prep. Yeah, I can get
Okay.
that. Yep.
And then, yeah, maybe just use the data, have them talk about what they did this year.
Yep.
I'll just play a little devil's advocate, because as I think of this, you know, when I think about all sorts of academic institutions, because it's just a given that teachers are underpaid, right? I don't know that I like the idea of making it factory worker salary numbers. Do you know what I mean? It's typical. I mean, even at university levels, it's typical. You do an activity, you get some crappy stipend. You know, Anthony's running the master finance program or whatever. He gets a stipend of like $3,000 a year as a professor, fully tenured professor. It's just, it feels less like it's about salary and more like it's like an honorarium, right? For committing to your community. And doing a little extra for your students. And I admit I'm a little uncomfortable with the idea of turning that into a tiered salary based on some function of the number of students and the number of hours. And, you know, there are also just different clubs that add different value in any particular year based on the needs of the community. So I wouldn't call it a knee jerk, but I sit here and I feel uncomfortable with the idea of turning it into counting widgets. But I mean, I also understand what you're saying, Ben. I know all about teachers being underpaid, but I worry that it's going to turn into this conversation about the number of your hours you're giving, as opposed to a conversation about, you know, kind of the service to after hours service to students for something you're really passionate about. So that's just what I worry about.
Yeah, I mean, I sort of understand that. However, again, I mean, look at public schools around the area, you know, they were short so many teachers, you know, in August, and there's a reason why teachers are leaving, and it's because they're underpaid. And so we have to do our due diligence to make sure that they're, you know, getting at least fair. Like when I argued about my swim coach salary, I wasn't saying I should make the big bucks. I was just saying, I want to make $20 an hour so I can enjoy the benefits of getting this extra compensation as well as enjoying seeing the production of, the people I coach. And it's just like, you have to I'm sorry, like there is a compensation aspect to, making an improvement in the community as well. And so like the way it's typically done is, the athletic director or whoever decides like, this is how many hours this person puts in. They multiply it by 20. Like I think $20 is the standard. And then that's what you get. But often that the number of hours are undercounted. So that's just like, I don't know. And I understand like, yeah, your husband and at, university level. Yeah. Yeah, but this is our sphere of influence, and so we can make a positive change for teachers. And again, I'm not saying teachers are doing it for the money or they're doing, but like there is a compensation aspect to that. And it is a little uncomfortable.
No, I agree. I think teachers should be compensated. I just, I am questioning the wisdom of moving to an hourly rate method.
I mean,
and changing that hourly rate based on the number of students who participate. Do you see what I'm saying? It's just it creates an unusual competition for participation.
Yeah.
You want a bunch of teachers running around the schoolhouse hassling kids to join their club.
And that's why we typically do it as a stipend, right? Because then this is a valuable club and you don't feel like you have to prove, like you're saying, the number of hours, the number of kids. Everybody's going to get a stipend for that.
I'm okay paying everyone $20 an hour, regardless of, the number. Like that's fine. All we really need to find out now are the number of hours worked and then a fair compensation point for that person. And we can kind of decide from there. I mean, it doesn't even have to be that in depth. Like we don't have to have a tiered system. That was just kind of an idea where, you guys were talking about, or you asked me, I think specifically about, well, what if it's 3 people versus 50 people? I mean, that's the thing, and you might just need more adults in that area then too. So no, I mean, you don't have to do a tiered system. I just think that we have to make sure that, everyone's getting compensated, fairly, not like really well. I mean, that's not, I never asked to be compensated really well. I just asked to be compensated fairly, and so I just want to make sure that, we're doing that because it can be easily overlooked because teachers are passionate about what they do. They love what they do. They care about the kids and they feel weird asking for more money. And it's awkward. So we just have to make sure that, we're helping them out.
Do you know of any schools that do a hourly payment for?
No, it's a stipend, but they calculate it hourly. So what they do is they say, we're going to pay them $20 an hour or $25 an hour. This is how many hours we think they work. And then you multiply that.
I see. So you take an estimate of the number of hours you think they're going to spend, and that's how you base the stipend.
Yeah. And that's why I'm asking them, and I think they're already doing it, just get a data point of how many hours are worked. And from there, we have a little bit more context, see how many people participated the previous year, and we have a little bit more context there. And then we can actually
consistent with what I was suggesting. Collect data.
Yeah, I think, yes.
So in the end, we're all saying kind of the same thing.
So for our next meeting, I can have that data for you so we can kind of look at it and just see, and then continue the conversation.
And we have I guess 2 months now. That's it. Yeah, that's good.
And then I think you want to have some set criteria, right? Like if you're going to discontinue a club, you should have a fixed criteria. And that was one of the questions, right? Like if the proposal indicated 30 students and 2 attend, it would be discontinued. Okay, what if 10 attend? What if 5 attend?
So what I can do for that meeting in December is I can look at participation rate and just kind of give you a layout of this is what we're planning on discontinuing based on this, and this, and then just so you can show, so you can see that this is the criteria that we're using. And then also at that point, we'd have how much time was spent for a good amount of the clubs that would have started in the fall.
Is it the building principals who will be deciding on continuance or discontinuance?
No,
Okay.
it'll be Mr. Birmingham, and then he'll get some guidance probably from Ms. Young. I won't have any part in it.
Okay. The other question I had as I was looking through your note is there was this, I know you mentioned that student clubs are driven by student interest.
Mhm.
And then we're talking about Glen Hills already, obviously, that Anna is deciding whether to approve or disapprove clubs, right?
Yep, she just had once the kids bring it to her, yes, she looks and decides if it is.
Are there any-
She hasn't had any that she hasn't approved from my knowledge, so.
She
Are there any
pretty much-
criteria?
I was gonna say she coaches them to find an advisor. That's pretty much what I've seen her.
Yeah.
It boils down to is the kids come say, we want to do this. Okay, you need to find an advisor. You need an adult that's going to support the
Mhm.
club.
So if there's an advisor, it's a yes, but there are no written criteria around this.
So
Yeah.
there's a form that they have to fill out about what the club is, and that's part of the proposal that they bring to her. And I can send you a
Mine is-
copy.
But I'm wondering about the criteria that she applies in deciding, right? Whether a club will.
I don't think she's really determining if a club's gonna run. If a student comes and they have an advisor, they're gonna run. What becomes the criteria that we're talking about is once that club is up and running, like, so if the kid comes and says, I want to start this club and we're gonna have 25 kids, and then one kid shows up, that's where she and Richard Birmingham are having that
I think-
conversation.
I think what Carla's asking is, were she to say no, what would be the reasons why? So like, so maybe
Oh.
asking Anna, like, what would, if there's 2 bullet points or something like reasons that a club would be a no, that she would say no to kids, just being really clear about it. And I don't know if that's on her form. I mean, there could be something on her form that says like, clubs will not be allowed that are blah, blah, blah. I don't know.
One of the things is it cannot, I'm blanking on the word, but you cannot have a club run that all students aren't able to participate in. So for example, like I think I touched at the beginning that if it's a transportation issue, or if you can't alienate kids from being able to participate if they can't get there, or if they're not being able to be transported, or on age, like gender or anything like that. So she's really big on making sure that it's equal and that it's available for everybody.
Do you
Like,
know
I
if
know
that's
that's a
on
big
the
piece.
form? Do you know if that's
Yeah.
communicated at all the kids?
Yeah,
Okay.
that is part of it. Yeah.
Okay.
So I think if you're going to be doing a presentation at the board meeting next week, right? Is it next week? It's coming up, isn't it?
I don't have this on the
This-
agenda.
Yeah, isn't this for
So
like
this-
January?
What?
That wait, you're not going to present this until
No,
January.
we'll bring it
No.
back to you guys with more data first.
It'll
Yeah.
come to you guys first in December before I go to the board again.
Okay.
Okay, great. I think I've shared with you the things I'm thinking about. Yeah, it would be great to have a spring report to the board or to the equity committee on what participation is looking like. Because
And then one of the other pieces just to include is Mr. Birmingham and Mr. Krager are going to be coming to the communications meeting with a plan of how they're communicating out about clubs and athletics, and just to families, and like about the schedule for athletics and just how they're including everybody. So that'll be at the communication meeting a couple weeks from now, I think.
it would be fun to see what kind of club ideas elementary kids come up with.
Yeah, I think Mr.
I-
Krager's got some good ideas. Brewing.
They should do like a club fair at which the kids come up with club ideas. It'd be some crazy stuff.
That's all I have for 2A.
All right.
That's all my questions. Give me a second here.
Sweet. Let's go to 2B then.
Sure. So I just wanted to bring an update that Ben had kind of touched on this earlier, that there's definitely a teacher shortage. 10 years ago, you could have had 40 applicants, and now we have maybe 2 or 3, especially in the special ed teaching positions. There's definitely a shortage there. So we had started a conversation with Alverno a while back about a program that they have for supporting paraprofessionals that want to become teachers. It's a program that they run, and then if you have a certain amount of staff that participate, they give discounted rate for the credits for the classes, depending on how many teachers or how many paraprofessionals sign up. They have a meeting in the end of October, and we have, I believe when I spoke with Kelly, our special ed director, I think there were 4 of our paraprofessionals that were interested in the program. So it's something that we would like to be able to offer to our paraprofessionals and essentially do a credit reimbursement similar to what we're doing for our teachers. We were going to do the 135, because that was still a good chunk of what the credit reimbursement. Yeah.
So are you saying it could go down? Like it isn't necessarily 450 per credit. It could go down.
Yeah, depending on how many students that we have enroll, it could potentially go down.
Okay.
But we wanted to just factor in paraprofessionals make substantially less than teachers.
Yeah.
So that's why we wanted to keep it at the 135. It's 130. Sorry.
Yeah, but the 450 could go down.
Mhm.
Okay.
So once she has that meeting at the end of October, and then we can see how many of our pairs actually sign up. Because if you have enough people, they'll also offer a course, like classes just for our staff as well.
And all paras have a college degree, right? No. Okay. So then what would they study? Would it be elementary ed? Would it be like a specialty science or math?
So it would be just a general education, and then they have the option to do a special education.
Okay, so it's
So it depends on how many credits they've taken, because some of our parents have taken some college credits, so they take that into consideration. But they would end up coming out with the general education, and if they opt that they would like to specialize in special ed, they can do that.
Okay, so it's mostly going to be the 1777 license and then a special ed license.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I would say a lot of our paras are special ed paras that they've expressed interest in doing special ed.
So they would get this. I don't know what the number is, but okay, they would get the special ed license. Okay.
What are the grant and federal federal funding programs that you mentioned?
So they're the title grant that also helps offset that, because what's one of the big things is they are trying to, there's a teacher shortage. There's the title grant that we can utilize to help pay for the cost of any staff that want to do professional development as well as continuing education.
So sorry, go on.
Go ahead.
With the 56 credits, would that give them an undergraduate degree then, or would that be like, what would that be?
That would give them an undergrad degree.
Okay.
A bachelor's degree. Yeah.
Okay.
I love the idea. Getting paras to college degrees, and then you have.
We're hoping it really promotes a lot of longevity with our staff. We want to really retain our staff, and we have some amazing paraprofessionals that we would just really like to help grow and stay in the district, just because they're such key pieces. And so I think Allison, I think you had mentioned it was what is it, grow your own or something, with that lingo that they use. But it seemed like a really great program, and Alverno is very happy about a collaboration and a partnership. So, and they offer both online and in-person classes, and the student teaching can be done in our school.
It was funny. I asked Alverno, I said, so can males take your class? And they were like, yes, for this one. Yes.
Oh,
I wasn't sure.
Yeah. When you think about incentives, it's interesting to ask what kind of incentive you would want to create to help the person finish the degree all the way. So I don't know if you would want to think about that, whether there would be a financial incentive to complete or a job.
It was something that we talked about, because they would definitely get obviously moved into the teacher salary once they have the degree, but what could we do potentially in the meantime as they're earning the degree? So maybe after X amount of credits, you get another $1 or something. So
because they don't make they're not making really good.
It would have to be the carrot and the stick, a pretty good stick, that if you leave, you're going to be penalized. We
talked about that too. Like a certain, less than 2 years or something, you might have to pay X amount back or something of what we're doing.
How much are paras paid?
The starting rate is 16 for somebody with no experience, and it goes up to 21.
So I think you said this where, you could, if they get 30 credits, they could go up by a certain amount of dollars per hour.
Yeah.
Okay.
Once I can get a gauge of the interest of which pairs are going to go through with the program or that we can get signed up in the program, I think it would be a great trial run to kind of say, okay, these are the 3 pairs that we have in the program. This is what they're making once they've completed this program. And then like to what Allison is saying, just also having a very clear cut, this is what the district can do to support you as you are moving forward in your education. And then also just making sure that as a district, we're protecting ourselves so that we don't pay for somebody to go through this program and then they leave.
I would say it would be similar. We could even set something up similar to like what's in my contract where, and I have very minimal credits right now, but like if I leave with less than this year, I have to pay this much back. If I stay for this long, I pay this much back. So it's almost like tiered, like the longer you stay, at a certain point, you're not gonna have to pay anything back, but the longer you stay, the less we would ask to be reimbursed.
It's a vesting
Mhm.
model. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
that sounds good to me.
I love the idea. I'm curious to know how the funding, the grants and federal funding would work. Would you be would the school ask for the grants and then you reimburse the students?
So what we would do is for what we would paid off like that 130 per credit, depending on how many people it is. Once I know, that's why it's important for me to kind of know how many people are looking to attend, because then I can budget for that in the grant. And then that's when I say to the grant, I want to take $5,000, rough number, $5,000. And then at the end of the year, I can say, yep, we ended up spending 5,000 or ended up being more. And then I can say, okay, only 5,000 is there to offset it. But that's
this is funding that would pay for our reimbursement offer. That's what you're saying.
Yeah.
For the
Yeah,
135.
any cost with like, if there's something that we can say for the cost of the credit reimbursement, for other things, it gets slippery because it's so many gray areas when it comes to credit and tuition reimbursement. It's very clear cut in the grant that I can use as an expense.
Okay, I was thinking grants to teacher, to the paras that would reduce their cost. But
Oh,
this
yeah,
grant,
no, there are.
they would have to hunt those on their own, right?
Yep, but Alverno also does have a really nice scholarship opportunities and financial aid package that they offer. And we would definitely try to make sure that we like provide resources for them to be able to, we don't want that to be the reason that they can't do it.
Yeah, because I'm assuming some loans are going to have to be taken out. Like,
Yeah.
What are the interest rates right now?
I don't know.
Interest rates? Oh,
Higher
probably like 3 to
higher than they were.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
ask me in a week, then it'll be 2
I was
months
just
higher.
like, I know they went up. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I like the idea. I think it's a good idea.
So I will bring an update once they've had their informational meeting and they start their sign up for the next term, and I'll have some more numbers for you.
Yeah, good. Yeah, and that's some context and like who's gonna do what. Like it would be nice, I think. I don't know about what you guys think, but like if some people specialize in reading or like some, like things like that. And I don't know if Alverno even offers something like that, but
They do. I think we asked them about reading too.
okay.
Yeah, I think it might be something to also just offer to our teachers in general. Like, hey, this is a program that is offered for Alverno. If you want to get your reading license, this is what the district can do for you if you're able to, if you want to go back, because some of those specialized license, reading, math, all of those they're hard to find. So
Yeah. Well, you can get my math knowledge for free, so.
I thought you
know that I have a 400.
I take anything for free from you.
Ben, do you know that I have a 400? I know it's not called a 400 anymore, but I actually have a 400.
Well, no, I have a 400 too. Yeah.
That's what I'm
What's
saying.
400?
We have something in common here.
Yeah.
What's a 400?
A math minor.
Well, it's a 1400, I guess. But yeah.
I have a minor in statistics, so that counts.
I have a law degree.
A nice statistics, the science of math.
Yeah, it was an undergrad and my minor that I was not expecting, but I enjoyed it. So that's all I had for you.
All right.
Move to adjourn.
Oh, do you have to do public participation for a second?
Oh,
Yeah, well, I was just, yeah, let's do that. Well, Carly, you don't have anything else?
I'm good.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, let's go on to 3C, right? Public participation. Well, I think we can adjourn. So is there a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, goodbye.
Thanks for
Bye.
good conversations.
Yes. See you later.
Bye, Ben.